What is up, guys? Vincenzo from Home of Milan coming back at you once again. Furthermore, got a lot to unpack in today's video with the Champions League result versus PSG. So, without any further ado, let's just hop into this. But make sure you guys are following us on TikTok at Home of Milan, Twitter at Home of Milan1, and obviously Instagram at just Home of Milan. Without any further ado, let's just jump right in. We got a lot to unpack. So we suffer a 3-0 defeat to PSG, and we remain goalless in this Champions League campaign. And in the first upcoming games, it was 2-0-0 results. And considering we conceded our first 3 goals in this game, arguably against a top 5 team, that's probably the only positive takeaway, I guess you can say, is that we conceded 3 goals in 3 games, and it happened in one match. So I guess that's the only positive takeaway, even though that sounds negative. I guess this is the only light I can shed on the current situation. Pulisic at the end of the match, he said that this was a game that shouldn't have ended 3-0. And I kind of agree with him because we were very wasteful with our chances, right? And especially with the chance that Pulisic had around the 50th minute or so. It was the ball from Mike Maignan, which he could have gotten an assist if Pulisic put it away. But he instead went for a pass to Giroud, who was very far back from the pass. I can see what he's, trying to do, but in this situation, I feel like he needs to be a little bit more selfish in this scenario. And I don't know. I feel like Milan is really missing that bite that we have in front of the goal, and it's clear because we haven't scored a goal in the Champions League. We kind of struggled, scoring goals in Serie A against the top teams, right? Obviously against Juventus, it was a very tough pill to swallow because we couldn't get a goal, right? And then obviously against Inter, it was tough, but regardless, we couldn't even challenge Donnarumma, who was in the goal. We were taking shots from outside the box. That being, I remember just off the top of my head, just the 2 Leao shots that were, on the outside of the box. Terrible shots. They were both off target, not even challenging Donnarumma. And obviously Pulisic wasting the golden chance. And to make it 1-1 at that time would have changed the game. It would have flipped the game on its head. But not really much to really talk about in this game. It was just defensively, Milan were awful, right? It was terrible. And I think when you watch the second goal, that's all you need to know. Let's just break down the goals. The first goal was just pure Kylian Mbappe class, right? He just does his trademark drop the shoulder and shooting near post. And I'm disappointed in Maignan because I was hoping that, with all, the time that he spent in this French national team camp, that, he would know Mbappe, know he's going to drop the shoulder, know he's going to shoot near post, but he just had his feet planted. And I don't know if he was expecting it, if the shot was too fast, or maybe the defender was in his way. I don't know, but I was really expecting more from Maignan. Like Kylian Mbappe, easily, hands down the best player on the planet. So to concede a goal from Mbappe, I wasn't too upset, right? Because to ask a lot from Tomori to really lock down Kylian Mbappe is a lot to ask for. So I'll give a little bit of leeway, but regardless, I was a little bit disappointed in Maignan because maybe he gets a hand to it or at least dive, right? At that point, it's 1-0, and that's the end of the half, right? And at the end of the half, I wasn't too upset with how we were playing, right? We were getting into those spaces, and we were really challenging PSG for a good half an hour, right? And I know Pioli said, "Oh, we were, dominating for 60 minutes." Baloney, right? I don't think, past that second half we were threatening at all. That's the headline of today's game, is just wasting chances, and I feel like I'm just beating a dead horse again. We come onto, social media and all that, and we say, "Oh, Milan was wasteful with their chances. Milan couldn't score a goal. Milan couldn't, do this, couldn't do that." And it's getting kind of frustrating now. And I feel like a lot of people are pointing their fingers at Pioli. And again, we'll get to that later. But second goal was just us sleeping, right? It was the corner. PSG pass it short, and then we just caught sleeping, right? It was Tomori who was left with a 2v1 essentially, right? And it was the ball goes to Kolomuani, and he's just wide open with, you know, Magnon, who parries it, which again, I feel like Magnon should be doing better here. You know, we've seen him, really, keep the ball close to him, but he parries it right to Kolomuani. And, Tamori's left, he was marking Kolomuani, but then he has to go on the goal line to stop it, or maybe you can argue that he has to maybe stay on Kolo Muani, but regardless, Tomori is left with two players to cover. So maybe there's a lot of blood on Magnon's hands. It's a team effort. It's a collective effort to concede this goal, and you know it looked like we were just so disorganized. And I feel like that was right before that goal got disallowed from Dembele, right? So it was 5 minutes, right? We concede the goal from Dembele. 5 minutes later, we concede this goal to Kolo Muani. It's just 11 chickens with their heads cut off. And that's what it looked like with us defending. And it was very frustrating to see because you kind of just saw it coming, right? It was just Milan was so disorganized. We were so, just flustered. The last goal was, obviously it was the end of the game. Everyone, was tired or whatever, or just kind of very unmotivated to kind of keep the game going. But the third goal was a great showcase from Zaire Emery, who on Paramount Plus, Thierry Henry was really giving him his praise. And I think this is surely a ones to watch player for sure, who's 17 years old. He absolutely dominated the midfield. And it was King and Lee who put the chance away. And again, defensively, we have to be doing better because, yes, we were deflated, but, we have to carry on. We have to keep our heads up. We got to, you know, really, stay in the game because, it's goals like this, when you lose 3-0, right? That can, come and bite us at the end with goal difference and, all that. So we got to be doing better. Is Adley, who, kind of left his marker a little bit, and he let, I believe, it was Zaire Emery he was dribbling, and then, he passed it. Gonzalo Ramos does the fake shot, lets it go, and then King and Lee puts it in. It's just defensively this game, we were so flustered, and you could definitely see it in all the players, right? And Calabria at the end of the game, he really voiced his opinion. He was very annoyed that, we keep, you know, losing in this fashion, right? Obviously against Juventus, it was a very frustrating loss. And today it was a very frustrating loss because I feel like there was a lot of optimism going into this game. And in the first 30 minutes, I feel like, there was a really good chance for us to take the lead. But again, it's being wasteful in front of goal. It's something that, we've constantly said over and over and over again. And until, we get over this hill, it's going to be a problem for us. In this whole Champions League campaign so far, we're halfway through, right? This is our halfway point. I feel like just the name of the game is us wasting chances. We saw it against Borussia Dortmund, we saw it against Newcastle, and we're seeing it against PSG. So we really need to turn it around because at this point, it's either we go all in, we put all our chips and we roll the dice, and we try to get something, in these next couple games, or we just go all in for the league and hopefully we can win the league, right? And I think if we go out of Champions League, right, like how we did in our very first season when we came back, we got last place, right? We got last place in the group, and we went on to win the league. So if this is the blueprint for us to win the league, there's a lot to take away there. But regardless, it's a tough hill to climb. We sit at the bottom of the table with 2 points. Newcastle and Borussia Dortmund with 4. And the door is still open, but it's a lot to ask for. To beat Dortmund and Newcastle, we play Newcastle away, Dortmund at home, and then we play obviously PSG in the San Siro as well. So realistically, the game that we grab points in is Newcastle and Dortmund, and then hopefully we can roll the dice and get a draw versus PSG, and that's the best outcome we can get, for my opinion. Let's go to tops and flops. So Krunic started this game. It was his first start since his injury, and it's a tough game to play in away from home at PSG. But he played absolutely terrible, and we can see he's still not match fit. Still not match fit, And you can see it just with your eyes because we saw Yassine Adli come in and we started creating chances. We started getting forward and we started, being more of a threat going forward. So for me, yeah, flop of the match, it was Krunic, and I think it was definitely an eyesore for sure because he was clearly the weakest one out of everybody. Maybe you can say Malik Tial because he got subbed out at halftime, and considering he's not going to be available for the match against Napoli, for him to be subbed off says a lot. And I feel like Pioli doesn't really make those subs very often, so when he does, it's clearly a bad thing. But for me, I think flop of the match was Krunic, and top of the match, nobody. I feel like nobody really stood out in a positive light. I feel like we were just so deflated, and I feel like nobody really stood out, did anything incredible, created any chances. So, man of the match, nobody. I'm going to say that right now. If you followed us on Instagram, I posted a questions little box and I asked you guys to ask some questions. And a lot of the questions were the same regarding Pioli, and we'll get to this whole Pioli. Will he get sacked? Do you want him sacked? Do you want him to stay? So yeah, there's a lot of questions of do you think Pioli will get sacked? And I think no. I think Pioli will stay till the end of the season because I feel like for us to sack a manager mid-season, obviously, we got, over the hunch of these hard fixtures, right? We already played Inter, we played Roma, played Lazio, we played Juventus, and we play Napoli this weekend. So that's five out of, roughly 6, 7 really good teams in Serie A. So we're getting over that hunch, right? So now we're gonna have a lot more easier fixtures, pick up a lot of points, and hopefully, Inter slip up because they play Roma this weekend as well. So do I think Pioli will get attacked? No. And then there's also comments of, who do you think is the candidate that will replace Pioli? And of course, the name on, I think, the top of the team sheet is De Zerbi. I think obviously De Zerbi makes the most sense, and De Zerbi makes sense for a lot of the reasons why everyone's already said. He's a Milan fan. He's played for Milan. He knows Serie A. He has good styles of play, etc., etc. But I think let's just say for an unpopular pick, right? I think an unpopular pick would be Francesco Farioli, who is the manager of Nice in Ligue 1. He's a very young manager. He's 34 years old, and he's also seen as a disciple of De Zerbi, where they work together at not only Benevento but also Sassuolo. So obviously he knows the league somewhat as well. Um, but he has some great ideas. He's still unbeaten in Ligue 1, and he also beat PSG, which is something that we could not do. Um, so he currently sits second place in Ligue 1, 1 point behind first place. Obviously, that can change with the fixtures coming this weekend. They've conceded 4 goals in 9 matches this season, and Farioli is seen as more of an attacking minded manager with an aggressive style of pressing. And also, it would mean a gateway for transfers like Kefren Turam, who is linked with Inter, and obviously Jean-Claire Todibo. So I think if we get Farioli, I think it's a gateway to get guys like this. And thinking, oh, we're going to get guys, top players, don't get your hopes up because I feel like this is the sort of market we're kind of working with is this Liga kind of buy low, sell high. Obviously, there's also shouts of Ignacio Abate getting his shot, and obviously he's the manager of the Primavera, and he's developing guys, and he plays with a 4-4-2 with a system that's very condensed in the middle, so it forces the opposition to play wide, right? So you're kind of eliminating the team playing more centrally, and maybe that can be a good idea. I mean, I know the Primavera has been very good, but I don't know if tactics from Primavera, right, will translate to teams like in Serie A, in the Champions League, and so on. So I think, with Abate, you're rolling the dice a little bit, but I think it wouldn't be a bad shout, right? I think he's someone who gets respect from a lot of the players. He's definitely a legend for sure, right? He's, been with us for a long time, and, he was the captain for us, right? So I think he has that leadership ability and that quality to really push the team going forward. And that's something I think Pioli lacks, is that leadership ability. I think Abate wouldn't be a bad shout, but I think obviously De Zerbi makes the most sense. And I think if you're Milan, I think that's someone that you really have to go to. I think there's a very good chance that we get De Zerbi next season. But do I think Pioli will get sacked? No. I think we'll keep him at the end of the season. So yeah. So that'll do it for this episode, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. This was kind of just a little recap of just our Champions League campaign, and also the game versus PSG, which was a complete disaster. But I want to know what you guys think in the comment section below. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure you guys follow us on all socials at Home of Milan on Instagram, Home of Milan 1 on Twitter, and follow us on Home of Milan on Bunches. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Ciao ragazzi.